Ah, we did it. So far, so good. Oh, and by the way, the other morning, Monday morning, we are having Zoom issues. Unbeknownst to us, we consolidated our Fidium. We did the lines down from the Latches parking lot all the way up the street through into our area, all the way up to this office here during that period of time. That is why we were having all the difficulty with Zoom. It's because they would shut the line off, then they check it, and then they put the line back on.
That's why we're saying now recording.
Yeah, they were laying new lines so that there would be a clearer reception for video. They didn't tell anybody. And they attached it to building without any permission to, so we've made a call. As has every single, if you look at it, they went like this. You know, the city of Keene has done a great thing of trying to get wires out of the downtown area.
Oh, yeah.
And here's
the
Fidium going like this. A private guy from Massachusetts that really doesn't know how to play, and he's like, I'm just connected. So yeah, he connected all these buildings, banks, whatever, and no one knew. So that's why we had the problem.
So are these above ground wires?
Yeah,
Oh, they didn't use the conduit?
no,
You know how many thousands of dollars we spent doing that?
I understand that. That's what I said. I'm like,
What a
did
moron.
they even know? And so I haven't heard back from Consolidated, but but we had to call in.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. All right, commissioners meeting Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. Two of the commissioners are here. And we're gonna move on. As always, I start off with public comment.
No, thank you.
Already. Elected officials and department head updates. Kim, I know you're probably just listening in
Yes, just listening in.
already. And Doug, you're here for a purpose, but is there any other thing that you'd want to talk about?
No, I
Okay.
don't think there is.
Okay, and Suzanne, do you have anything else?
Yeah, one item.
Okay,
I am, in addition to my agenda item, I want to just give an alert that later today, I will be sending an email to our three commissioners with a lengthy PDF attachment. It's the grants policy and procedure manual. This is not new, but it is revised, and 3 pages of it are actually a policy that in the past you have executed when there have been substantial revisions to grant rules. This,
Did you redline it?
I did not redline it, but I can give you the red line version if you would like. So I have 2 versions actually, and I can do that for you. Where one shows the track
Yeah.
change, the significant track changes, and the other one shows it accepted. So yes, I guess, yes, I'll give you 2.
I don't need to, just give me the red.
Oh, you want just the red line one? Okay, would you like the red line one or I'll attach them and you can do
because
what you
if
like.
you get to electronically that way, then once you guys approve it, you can get the approved copy in person, or we can send that copy.
Well, I don't need to
Okay,
archive that because I know where it is.
all right.
I'd like just the red line.
Already.
Well, and I am also going to be attaching, so it might make more sense to give you all of the versions. What is new is a slide deck to create an annual grants training for county employees and subrecipient employees that work on grants and or have anything to do with grants, whether or not they work on it, like supervise someone. It not necessarily mandatory, more like just making it available. I would say that's the #1 request at this time that I get internally, that, oh, I didn't know. It would be good if there was a training, or I didn't know about this, and or similar inquiries that could be covered. So I will make it a presentation in person in the future, dates and details to be determined. This is the first step, run it by you. But the vision that I have is that this would be an optional thing to send to people, but that what I would absolutely do is send the slide deck to them. To, if you're unable to make it, here's the slide deck, which could speak for itself. It should be informative enough that you don't necessarily need to hear me, but if you prefer the in-person or just information, I will make both available so that people who work with grants feel a little more informed and don't have to read the 60+ pages of the manual. It will just give the most important need to know. And in case you also want to breeze right on over it, that will be available to you too. There's 3 pages of a policy that precedes the manual itself, which essentially says that these are the overarching policies for grants for Cheshire County, one of which is that the grants department would be responsible for creating this manual. The manual itself is designed to be fluid because grant rules change by the minute, every other day. They're like, this is new, here you go. And you have to implement it by such and such date. On the fly, we accept a new grant and suddenly there's this new term. It only applies to grants. Sometimes they want it to apply to all of your grants. So in order that we can be responsive like that, the manual itself is it's designed in such a way with this corresponding policy that the manual can change on a whim, whereas the policy itself remains a little more static. This will all make sense when you see it. You'll have plenty of time to review it because I understand next week obviously would be too soon. And then we're not meeting here again until the 20th. And so as to reduce mileage charges, I will just leave it for you to take your time with looking over it. And if even the 20th feels a little too soon, we can look at it again after that a week or two later. And if you have any questions while you're reviewing it, please reach out anytime.
Thank you. Gonna move on to schedule item, master agenda item number 1216, Violence Against Women Act Award Acceptance. It's first 2025. Suzanne Bansley is there to speak to it. Action expected vote to accept the award and authorize the execution award documents for calendar year 2025. Violence Against Women Act grant from the New Hampshire Department of Justice for 30,000 plus 10,000 in match. Funds will be used for a cost share met with salary and benefits of domestic violence prosecutor. Go ahead.
This grant is you could call it the fraternal twin of the one that you one of the few that you executed that you approved last week. The one that for Sarah Hoskins, the victims of crime. This one is the Violence Against Women Act, also from the State Department of Justice. It's passed through the Federal Department of Justice. This one pays for a very small salary and proportional benefits for David Jenkins, who's our designated domestic violence prosecutor. The match is also met that way. Combined, they are far below what the actual cost is for prosecuting domestic violence, but it is a nice little small amount that goes towards something that is very important for the community. I can answer any questions if you have them.
It's also gonna be in Chris's office.
This is in Chris's office, yes.
Okay, any other questions? If not, a motion to accept the award and authorize execution of award documents for the calendar year of 2025 Violence Against Women Act grant from the New Hampshire Department of Justice for 30,000 plus a $10,000 match. Funds will be used for a cost share met with a salary and benefits of the domestic violence prosecutor.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Aye.
aye, all right. Motion passes.
Thank you.
On to
Thank you.
master agenda item number 1217, Department of Corrections Capital Project Planning. Superintendent Yosway is here. Action expected to review the Department of Corrections capital projects for the 2025 budget and beyond. This is a conversation that was started by Doug, and you had asked them to put together a list. And this is a list that he's brought forward, and we can discuss it, and then you'll be ahead of the game for the budget process. Doug,
Do you all have copies of it? I see I do.
you should have it in your packet right there.
Yeah.
It's,
Davis made.
yeah,
There it is.
So we'll be back on the 25th talking about the budget, but because of the scope of it this year, Jack specifically had asked that we get a look at it sooner, or you get a look at it sooner than later. Almost all of these, but not all, are facilities related, and obviously Les is here as he's the subject matter expert. I don't know what process makes sense. We could go through them one at a time, but just to share the way I've organized it is the item.
I don't think any of the items are new. We've already talked about most of them.
Talked about a lot of them, yeah.
I think the thing to talk about is what kind of a timeline you want to put together, a priority list of some sort, so that we can work it in without too much pain.
Yeah. So you may have other questions as we go through it. We've tried to put a timeline, at least in our view. We've tried to put a sense of prioritization. And then outline for you the risk of waiting. In some, there's very little risk per se, maybe none in some cases. Others, there's more significant risk in terms of being able to operate a jail safely and securely if worst case scenarios happened. So the camera system is the largest of these, and I won't review what we've talked about or what's written, but we've known for a year or so, maybe two, that cameras themselves, which is just a small part of the system, were failing and increasingly difficult to replace them with correctional grade cameras. The original lifespan on the system, is this what we were
10
talking about?
years.
So it's not a surprise that we're facing this, even though they were top of the line back in probably 2007, we committed. No, it would have been 2010, I suppose, or 2009. Almost 15 years later, here we are.
How many cameras are there?
125.
Approximately, give or take.
That quote is from a couple months back, 650. I think there's very limited options in terms of vendors for this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
I had two other vendors one from Mass. One from, I think, Delaware. And both were a no-show. I spoke with them on the phone, set up appointments. Hours before the appointment, I'm not gonna, and then ghosting with follow-up appointments. Seems to be a new trend across the board, all vendors that I'm dealing with. We have plenty of work, we don't have to quote anything. You want prices, we just don't waste time on that. People call us, they hire us, we do the work, and that's that. And I'm running into that with everything. It's not just the cameras, you pick a thing, that's how it works.
Right. And I hear that. I think that the thing that we just have to do, we have to still make that effort, which I appreciate that you reached out. If they don't, then you document, this is what you did, and this is why we're going in this direction, and and so that, because this is a chunk of money, we've got to do our due diligence.
absolutely.
And I would expect nothing else. I'm not saying it for any other reason, but just saying it. And so that if we have to then go with this, we're not actually sole sources, because you did reach out to others.
Mhm.
And that's to it all. So, and I don't know if it has to be an RFP shape form or what, to see if anybody responds. And that might be an easier way for you, is to put it out for there and see if anybody does respond to it. And the other thing, I looked at this chart too, and I have some thoughts, and since you're here, and I know you may not be here for the budget process, I just like to throw some things around and see if I'm in the ballpark, because when we look at this, it's our job too, also to see if we can work with you guys to find some common ground on some of the items. So with this, you said an end date of 2027, but it comes with two risks in my world. One is more failures and price. And I get that, but that's a big chunk of change to come up with too. And then what if we were shooting for 2026? We set aside a portion of that money this year, $325,000, and then we put in the budget for the following year for the other $325,000. Is that workable? I just want.
It's from the timeline, it's workable.
Yeah.
And this happened with our transport bus.
Yeah.
We had a figure, we put half of it out 1 year ago and now that figure's increased. That will probably happen, so I know you picked half of the amount
Right.
based on
It's the
today's
risk with
prices.
areas.
We figure around 10%.
The other thing I'll just
There's no
reminder,
way to
you
know.
know, Jack brought this up is whether to go the route of a bond
It's
and,
not-
Yeah, it's not feasible.
okay.
I mean, I think originally when we started talking about this, we didn't know if there was gonna be another
million.
$700,000 project. I mean, when we did this amount of projects, the bond route wouldn't,
Mhm.
especially because of the type of things. You really don't bond past the lifespan of a particular item. And, so that's why we're just looking at other ways to maybe make it a little more palatable.
Yeah, and like with the bore field motors, they seem to be working now. Could we purchase one? Have it in-house, not put in, but have it in-house, so if one fails, we have one of the systems.
Well, we have, it's a redundant system, so it's 6 motors.
Oh, it's 6
each-
ones.
Yeah, each, a pair operate a single function. They switch back and forth. That way, if one fails, you have the second one in place. Because the system has to have these motors.
Yeah.
Without it, the whole thing is shut down. So there's redundancy already. What I'm proposing is not to, initially, when we were doing the water furnace and I was meeting with EEI, it was in the quote to remove all the motors and pumps and replace them with all brand new ones. That was our original intention, so I didn't pursue it beyond that point. Once the project took shape, prices, COVID hit, prices shot through the roof. Things started getting whacked off the list, and this was one of them. Now, over this year, I've replaced 2 motors with 2 brand new ones. I have rebuilt one, I have the other one returned yesterday, so 2 rebuilt motors, 2 rebuilt pumps. So I've 2/3 of it I've already done.
Okay,
The only thing that's left is the bore field, and next year I'd like to pull one of those motors, send them off to be rebuilt, put it back, and then maybe next year do the other one and set it off.
so what you would be saying, so I'm in the ballpark of it then, what you're saying is that when you pull that one out, the other one will run and cover it while it's gone. And then so we're in the same, we're pretty much.
Yeah,
saying the same thing.
we're in the same,
Okay, good.
yeah.
And then do you feel? I feel like we should, this year replace one of the tanks. And then next year do the other one, because I don't like the idea of mending it, because I feel like.
We're on the same page.
Mending it could be 3 years, it could be next week, right?
I left it open for you guys to visually see it when you come into the facility next time. We'll schedule time to have you come into the mechanical room and I'll show it to you, what there is. There's 3 very large vessels. They're 1,000 gallons each and, they've all deteriorated.
Are they lined?
They are.
So a filter system or some sort. would-
Well, they're hot water storage, so it's domestic hot, so it's really not filtering, it's more of the water temperature as it entered the vessel. You know, I wasn't here when the thing was designed and set up. I find it ironic that the same exact company that installed them initially gave us a very nice presentation with a new vessel to replace the old ones. And now they're boasting about the 25-year lifespan and the, upgraded, innovative lining and, so obviously this has been an issue.
Hmm.
And that they have addressed. This is the solution. The lifespan of the vessel is 20 years. It was installed in 2009, so we're literally 15 years and 3/4 of it is past. Where plumbing should have been done differently, there was no reason to have all 3 hooked up. Okay, and unfortunately, when it was done, they hooked up all 3 were running and operational the entire time.
So they deteriorate.
They all deteriorated at the same rate. I lost one 4 years ago, had experienced a leak. We didn't even need it, so I just played around with it and said, let me see if I can fix it. So I made up some makeshift patches, put it on there, and it lasted 4 years. But when it went in a big way. It was catastrophic, and yeah, I had flooded out the entire mechanical room. It was pretty bad. So when you play with it like that, you gotta be careful what you're playing with, because when it does fail, it fails epic fail. I patched the two they almost went simultaneously. The two of them, one had a very small leak, the other one had a more significant leak. I patched it. I learned a lot from the first one. So I patched them differently. I've got one completely stopped, the other one, maybe a couple weeks. But the point is, that could last years. I don't know, maybe, but I agree with Chris. To just replace the element and keep the tank just seems like a waste of time and money. It's inevitable that they will fail much the same way as the very first one I played with, and when it does, it fails in a big way.
I think the other thing I'm gonna take a look at, which, and I haven't talked to Cheryl about this, but it just popped in my head, so I'm thinking out loud right now, Cheryl. Which is always dangerous.
That scares her.
Yeah, no, it does. But as we head towards the end of the year, contingency fund for maintenance. Could we utilize some of this, get some of this stuff ordered now? Like the batteries, some of the smaller things, so that we don't add it into the next year's budget. So that would be my homework, to see if there's opportunity. When we talked with Cheryl when I talked to Cheryl about this, and after she goes with Chris.
No, I mean, I totally understand,
Yeah.
especially getting the smaller thing.
Yeah, if we have a way to take care of some of this money now. And so that I don't have to add it into the next year's budget, I'm gonna do that. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just strategizing, you know what I'm doing, I'm just strategizing how to do it and ensure that we get it done. The grinder has to be rebuilt, it's 8 years in. And I get that, so maybe those are things that's not a big expense, but I get it, so. Is that one of those things too, that you have two there or one?
That's one.
One?
The grinder is one, right?
The grinder,
That'd be new,
there's
or
no-
that'd be rebuilt.
no, we're gonna
there's
rebuild
no-
that.
There's not a backup
No,
option.
but see, I have the ability to bypass it.
Okay,
So in other words, the city mandates, we have that in place.
yeah,
Doesn't have to be there.
yeah,
I just simply take it out of service. I open up some chutes that are there.
Yeah.
And we bypass the whole system and just drop straight into the city sewer line.
and the only other thing I would ask on the cameras aspect of it, because this question will come up at some point. And it will come up either from me or from the delegation or from the commissioners, is. Are we also on some levels locked into a company that's already there? Because if we don't, we have to pull out our software. We have to, the cameras may not match up with the computer system and the software that we have in place right now. Is that an added cost that we could be looking at? I would just like to see that factually or somehow, and I don't know what that means.
I think I think what you're referring to is how proprietary is
You're right.
what we're doing, and
That's the fancy word I was looking for.
yeah, that's I deal with that word all the time. Elon Musk has come up with the concept, and everybody under the sun has jumped on the bandwagon because it's genius. It's genius. I mean, we don't sell parts to people. You gotta buy it from us, and it's not available, and that's the end of the story. And
I don't know if he thought that or Apple did, because every time I need anything for Apple, I have to spend, it doesn't.
you think it was Apple that came up with that? See, I always thought.
He was pretty brutal. He was nicer about it, but.
Yeah, I always, cause I'm a big car guy, so
Yeah.
when Musk came up with this concept of you can only buy the vehicle, the parts are not available for sale. They don't have a parts department in a Tesla dealership,
Right,
just doesn't exist.
yeah, when the car dies, like my son-in-law has a Tesla, and he had to bring it down to the Tesla dealership, he's like, oh, please, because.
There are guys that have gone and former Tesla employees who set up shops of their own, and what they do is buy junk cars. So they go to salvage, they buy the junk cars, they warehouse them, that's their parts supply.
Yeah. Well, and Tesla's getting pressed on this because of the new company, it starts with an R, Rivet,
Oh,
out of California,
Mhm.
they came out and
Ri-
you can actually get work done,
Rivian,
yeah,
yes,
so, I know we're off track, sorry.
yeah, we're off track, but it plays
Well,
into every aspect of what I do.
Yeah.
And fire panel, proprietary.
Yeah.
Water heater, proprietary.
Hmm.
Right now, even our most updated component within the facility, the water furnace.
Yeah.
They would not install that unit unless we went to a Schneider control system. We have KMC in the building. Their system is designed to go with a Schneider, so I was told over and over and over again, it will work just fine, don't worry. Once it was all put into place and operating, it was limited as to what its capability was. And when I asked, well, why is it not handling this? Why is it not handling that? Well, this doesn't communicate with the KMC. You have to go to Schneider to get that done, and which leads into the next item on our list, which is somewhere in the ballpark of $60,000 to take the control systems that exist already that are perfectly functional, but do not communicate with the Schneider controller. So manually, my assistant and I have figured out ways to kind of circumvent it. So when it's sending a signal to something and it's not being received, we can intercept it, override it, and force the controller to do a task. And that's how we run the whole jail right now.
Yeah.
I force things to work because it's not receiving a command from the system. And they explain, well, you didn't do the upgrade to, you're running your old KMC stuff and our Schneider stuff. I said, well, I was very specific with you in the beginning. I asked, will this all, because we could have gone with KMC. There was no reason to change. But Rod was really hooked on the Schneider stuff, and everybody tells me their technology is way better. But it doesn't lend itself with what we have in place. So we mastermind ways I have to trick it into thinking it's doing something when it's in fact not doing it, and to override the system.
So it's gonna be our job over the next few weeks to really, months, to really take a look at how we can come up with a plan that at least hits the budget for 2025. And so we'll look at capital reserves, we'll look at, and this is why I always say to the delegation and the commissioners, we need some level of capital reserves. I don't agree with some, like the city of Keene's capital reserves are here. No, I believe we should have something here so that when these days come up, we can hit these without it hitting the following year's budget. And so we'll do what we can to try to take the hurt out of what we're gonna be, but there is still gonna be, I don't know how to do anything different than with the 325 that I think we're gonna have to put aside unless they want to do all 650.
So back to the camera system and proprietary and whether to do an RFP based on his attempts, which can be documented, that he tried to get 2 other vendors. And then I do think the answer to your question was Comtech's proprietary. Rob had copied and pasted an email where he said, this is going to need to be a Comtech project.
Right, he said it here.
Because of, yeah. And so we're kind of locked in.
Because we'd have to spend even more money.
We're just gonna, the bottom line for me is we have to document that. And so what I've heard today so far is that you actually have been doing your due diligence, 1. You have reached out, you got ghosted, 1. But the other issue here is that what we have in place, if we were to go in a different direction, could be a cost layer because, and I would just like to have a little bit more factual that's true. I know Rob said it, and so if we could get Rob to say something in that.
Yeah, Rob would be the
Just
guy to
because I
talk
think
to.
I need to be responsible to the commissioners and the delegation to tell them, this is why we have to go this way.
I will ask Rob to put something together, and you have the documentation on the other vendors' attempts to bring them in. Between those two, we should have it well
The
documented.
biggest thing that we're just trying to do overall is really make sure that we're following the level of RFP that the state is asking us to follow. And so, we're just, but in this situation, we may not have that choice because of the priority. And I just would like to have a better understanding from Rob Hummel if possible. That's all.
Yeah,
It's a boatload of money.
and I realize these are not final decisions today, but going into the budget process, we are agreeing the best way to go on the water storage tanks is the replacement of $1,000.
That would be my
That's
theory.
the feeling of,
That has to be the commissioners. I mean, I'm only suggesting.
yeah,
I support your theory, by the way. I want that, there to be emphasis on
Well,
that.
I'm not gonna micromanage, you guys just handle it.
I don't know if you want to bring out anything more for discussion today. I'll just say a couple of things.
Yeah.
The solar lights, the lights, and we are a government facility. The right thing to do would be to have that lighted as you come up the driveway. But it's not negatively impacting us in any way, not nearly at the scope of not doing some of these other things. So I'm not particularly
What are you
invested in that.
What part are you talking about?
There's 8 parking,
Streetlights.
eight street
Yeah, I know, but
lights.
I'm trying to
If you pull
visualize.
into the facility, there are two right on Marlboro Road.
Yeah,
And then as you come up, they're spaced that you would have normal streetlight spacing. And 8 total. Their lifespan is 20 years. They've been in since '09. They have various points of failure. Either the panels are bad, the batteries are bad, the charging system is bad, and again. Very old technology, technology has gone. Off the chart in 20 years and the capabilities, so to take what we have and repair it is throwing money down the drain. There's just no point to it.
So
okay, so this isn't it's not an addition, this is a replacement.
It's a replacement.
we already have it in place.
Yeah,
But the Commissioner Wasmac had asked, and I want to follow up with you since you're here. And he did respond to me, and he did communicate to Davis yesterday that he was going to be at, Primex is having their annual meeting today, so he's in Meredith at their church landing. So,
Solar lights.
solar lights, yeah. So, he had asked, he said that the box, there's a battery and the battery has to be replaced. And I know Doug, you talked to it. But I just want to make sure for the record that, he said, did anybody check to see if all it is really that there's a battery that needs to be replaced? And he said, these batteries, whoever put these in, weren't thinking in a way that made a lot of sense, because the batteries are usually at the bottom of the post. And these are at the top of the post, so you have to have somebody come in.
Yeah, in a bucket truck.
In a bucket truck. And he's like, so when was the last time that was done? And is that all that's really the issue here?
The charging system, we had a guy out.
Yeah.
Who looked at it. And he explained that if you were gonna try to go on the cheap, you would try to salvage the unit itself, the light part, the stem with the LED bulb in it.
Mhm.
But the batteries that are available today versus the batteries that they had 15 years ago, the charging system that would charge that battery is not going to be compatible with the new battery. You need a new charging system
Apple.
to charge the new battery. It's not just a matter of take this battery out, put another battery in.
yeah, but the whole unit's gonna be more efficient.
And he explained it to me, he goes, the panels, he goes, that's like Fred Flintstone with putting his feet down on the ground for brakes, it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's really, the panel may be burned out do you wanna spend money? I gotta go up there with a tester, test the panel to see what level of effectiveness it's working. The panel could be perished. I mean, it's 15 years old. It's not an infinite lifespan on this stuff. And the panels are designed to be replaced in 20 years. So you got 5 years left out of the panel. The panel might only be charging at a level of 40% efficiency.
So what I think I'm gonna do is.
You better just
I'm on, in this situation, I'm gonna talk to Suzanne to see if there's any funding out there that might allow us to, and because I think the city team with did something with some type, there might be some level of monies we could go after, so I'll look into that too.
Well, we have our secondary reserve that is building up, and then, February,
That's right too.
we're gonna have, how much are we gonna have, 40,000? Well, what is it?
Yeah, and that's
what we need.
exactly what it's supposed to be
Yeah,
used
yeah.
for, is that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So this is why this is a good working session, you know, these meetings are good working sessions, because, you know, we're gonna look to see if we can, it's important. Two things are important, they don't seem important, but they are to me. One is lighting. And because we have a lot of visitors too. And in the winter months, it gets dark early. And so that's important. And then the concrete, because we already had somebody trip on one area in there. And again, we have a lot of visitors. Now it's spray painted, I saw, so that people can see it, but sometimes even when you make it obvious, they still don't see it, and I don't want paying somebody $100,000 because they fell at and broke their leg or ankle or something, when, you know, for half of that, we could have that completed. So my biggest thing with that is we're gonna have to go back out for bids for that. And somebody's gonna have to tell us a little bit clearer the hidden costs of how much gravel is gonna be.
Oh, that was.
Yeah, you know,
Wow, that was epic.
yeah, whoever did those contracts, you know, it's just like, I mean, that was an added 30,000, whatever it was.
Well, and there was no recourse. It's all there.
Yeah.
Just read it.
I looked at.
Well, I did read it. I read it a bunch of times. I just never thought that something so obvious, you know,
Right.
this is what you do. You can't give me a ballpark idea to simply implement 1 cubic yard in the quote
Yeah,
and total that into the total and say, this is the total amount. It was so obvious.
yeah.
I don't know.
You didn't do the contract either. You participated in the contract.
I was in the
I wanna make that clear for the record.
Yeah, I did not approve that contract. I
Right.
did not,
Right.
wasn't involved in that. All I was involved with was the initial meeting, explain what we wanted done, and then I was out of the equation.
Yeah,
And then all I was done is, this is who was hired, this is what we're presented with, and I said, oh, okay, here we go. And, it was until the bill arrived and I really analyzed the contract, analyzed the bill. Yeah, they were still less than anyone else, correct?
Yeah,
So they would have received the contract anyway, but I thought it was a very underhanded approach. Being a contractor my entire adult life, 35 years. I've done hundreds of contracts. I've never done such an underhanded thing in my life, not once. It was a very, very sneaky technique especially when they argued with me during the project. I was out there, I was questioning how much is being done, why is that not being done, why is this not being done? That's not acceptable, we're not doing that. I want it done to this point, and they argued it with me the whole time. Unbeknownst to me that it doesn't really matter because I'm paying by the cubic yard. If I tell you to take this out and replace it, just do what I tell you to do. Okay, I'm gonna pay by the cubic yard, so if you take out 50 more cubic yards and replace 50 more cubic yards, it doesn't matter. You're gonna get paid. But so, yeah, they argued with me constantly, and we moved around things, and in the end, we got it exactly the way we wanted it, but it was a never-ending battle throughout the entire process.
so our job will be to see what we can do, to get any and all on us.
Yeah, that won't happen
You have an
again,
idea.
trust me. I'll be very, very careful the next
But
time.
the one thing.
Probably didn't expect it, though.
You may have to, you may have to work faster because we may, within this year, we may want to at least land some of this contract if we have the funding to do so.
I'll look to see what things do.
Yeah. That's all. Okay,
So on that, we'll wait to hear from you, Cheryl, as to
Well,
potential items that could be fit
it's no fun,
into
to be honest
this
with you,
year.
it's
And
not for Cheryl, but for me, the challenge to try to beat the system and not put it into the budget is actually like my sports now. I'm too old to play sports, so this is like, how can we beat the system, man?
well, it's a balance of doing things without,
Yeah,
it's a balance. I mean,
Yeah.
there's certain things that certainly, we're not gonna go out and have you buy a bus, without the delegation knowing, but, when it comes to having to fix the building, we gotta fix the building, but
Yeah.
we don't slide cars, there's a balance of what we do without having really a
That's what I-
conversation.
that's her nice way of saying, yeah, sometimes I have to
Yeah.
pull Chris back in.
Say,
Yeah.
no.
And I didn't hear anybody objecting. We're gonna need to get this bus done next year. We committed to it last year. Price is going up, but this thing's on its last
Yeah, the
legs.
door fell off.
If we're gonna continue to
Really?
You don't
bring
need
in
a
the,
door.
The rear
Yeah, what do you need a
fell
door
off.
for? You got them locked in anyway.
Oh,
If
you-
you don't need a door, you don't need air conditioning.
Yeah, it was kind of a long story.
we're keeping it going with.
The door physically was it falling off the van in the back, and McLaughlin called me, he says, could you just take a look at this? And tried to call everybody under the sun, but nobody wants, again, everybody's very busy, nobody wants to be bothered, they're just not interested. So we ended up doing it in-house, we removed the van door in-house, drilled out the hinges, put new hinges on it. We repaired it in-house, but, yeah, fell right off. I mean, it was hanging on by a thread, how he managed to get it back without physically losing this 150-pound gigantic door off the back of the van was.
Yeah. Well, UPS can drive around with an open door, but I'm pretty sure prisoner transport, that's frowned upon.
Oh, we only lost two.
All right.
Okay, anything else that?
No, but I appreciate you guys coming in now. And I know you'll touch upon it on some levels, at the budget
Yeah,
sessions that we'll have, but bottom line is that we're gonna, between now and then, try to identify how we can get a lot of this done.
very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Just a quick final kind of silly question related to hot water tanks.
Yes.
When in the last century approximately did prisoners finally have the capability of taking a hot shower?
Well, we did away with the 5-gallon
Getting
bucket
soft.
Sponge baths only.
I don't know for sure. I think that
Thirties,
it
forties, fifties?
depends what part of the country or which country you're talking about, but in the US,
Louisiana's still doing it.
probably about 100 years ago. But in the South, there's a lot of bizarre things that you
Yes.
hear about. I'm not always sure that it's true what inmates tell us who've served time in other states and what the state of operations and policies and the facilities they've done time in is, but I'm very thankful to be in New Hampshire and
Yes.
a superintendent in Cheshire County, New Hampshire. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving on, my reports. So wanna just, it's gonna be a short report because a lot of last week, we were really working on the presentation that we had on Monday. And it took a lot of time and energy.
Went very well, by the way.
I thought the chief presented well, I thought Cheryl knocked it out of the park. And I thought the discussion was really healthy and that it gave us a direction to go back and put together some more numbers and move forward from there. And I thought, I said it before the meeting, I'll say it you know, on the, during the meeting too, I thought your words and how you presented, was outstanding. Terry, and that your points will well thought out and really, help the discussion to move forward, so I thank you for that.
Or get a raise.
It's in the mail. Yeah, no donuts today, sorry. That was we're working with Department of Health and Human Services, I mean, Department of Homeland Security to finalize the contract. Remember, we had to do all this paperwork to get there. Then they sent us a contract, what we noticed is that there was in one place, we were the recipient, in another place, Southwest was the recipient, so we said, stop, slow down, who's the recipient? We really don't want to be if we don't have to be. They agreed so that, you know, the money that we will go directly to them. Then what that meant too is we need to get Southwest Fire Mutual Aid, because it's never just a little thing, up to speed on how to purchase, what the process is around purchasing, meet all their requirements, Bacon Davis, anything that may be, you know, needed to be done, for this money that's gonna be moving out, so. We're working with them on that, so they understand. Suzanne's gonna be working with them a little bit on grant, you know, understanding and putting together policy for them. So they understand it, and they have a staff member out there that actually likes that kind of stuff, so we're gonna be working with her. And so that seems to be all tightened up. I should be having the contract to me by today. So that we can sign it. Once it's signed, then it goes, my understanding, to governor and council for final approval, and then we get the money. So it's gone through fiscal, it's gone through everything.
That'll happen
It's
this
not,
year?
it's not that it's not coming, it's just processing.
That'll happen this year.
Yeah, within the maybe next, whenever they meet again, because if we get the contract today, I'll get it back up to them and we move, then it's in their hands to give. And the Director of Homeland Security, Rob Buxton, has been outstanding to work with. And actually, we have a meeting with him next week to talk about other topics that we've been discussing with him. Around emergency mitigation, which in this day and age is actually becoming more and more important. No, we're not Florida, no, we're not North Carolina, no, we're not Georgia, but someday we could be. You know, talk to Westmoreland, talk to Elsted. You know, they all experience on some levels what all these counties, these communities, these people are going through. So does it make sense for us to have a higher level emergency mitigation, so we are completely prepared for that day when it comes? I believe so. I believe that in this day and age, that 500-year storm, that 100-year storm is coming, like I've said before, every other Tuesday. And the people that were battered last week are being battered today and tomorrow. And with weather that they've never, I mean, I only listened to the Weather Channel last night, and they're saying they have never in their lifetime witnessed a storm this powerful.
And if you think that we have crescendo, you know, as far as weather severity goes,
Yeah.
you're wrong. It's only going to get worse.
And they kept saying that, and I don't pretend to be a person with outstanding knowledge in any of this, so I'm just saying I'm repeating what I'm hearing from those I think are actually professional, and they're saying it's the warming of the sea.
Yes.
It's plain and simple, it's the warming of the sea that's strengthening these storms to the level that's happening. And, you know, what's funny, what people don't realize, and I don't mean funny, haha, but I mean, you know, every year I go up to Maine for 2 weeks, and the ocean up there has become enjoyable.
Yeah, don't turn
It's
your
just-
knees blue anymore.
It's not like you have to step out because your feet are going numb. It's, you know, it's nice to, yeah, so it is worrisome overall, so. So that, you know, we met with CDFA, Community Development Finance Authority, that does all the community development block grants. And, they initially said that we couldn't, for this Southwest Fire Mutual Aid, do they have a thing called infrastructure that you can do to community development block granting. Well, in my mind, Southwest Fire Mutual Aid is infrastructure. But it's not brick and mortar. You know, and so we met with them, we thought it was gonna be a 15-minute conversation. An hour later, they're coming back to us in 2 weeks because they believe that they can structure it so that we could go after at least one site, which would be, it has to be in a community that is economically struggling. So Winchester has a site. So it could be that that we could get, up to $400,000 for that site alone. Which is another way for us to, we just gotta keep trying to figure out these ways to do things. And the other thing is, I'll be attending a meeting. Monadnock peer mentoring. Peer support, Monadnock peer support. You got a community development block grant from us of $750,000 some years ago. They've had some turnovers with the executive director over the years. They also got a $1 million grant that has nothing to do with us. And so they have 1.7 to do this infrastructure for, so they could create a better living situation for a lot of the people that have mental health issues that utilize their program. Very little of the 750 has been utilized. If it has, it all gone through Suzanne and done so correctly. But we're going, they have to have that monies utilized by the end of 2025. And so I'm going to a meeting on Friday at 5:30. Why do they schedule a meeting on Friday at 5:30? I don't know, but I am going to that meeting with Southwest Regional Planning Commission.
That's date night.
Yeah, to talk to them about really if they're not gonna use this, we're gonna pull the money back. If they're not gonna get their act together. Now, I get it that they've had multiple turnover executive directors.
None of the money was affected by that event, was it?
No. And so, but at some point we have to, I want to keep good standing with CDFA and they're aware that we're always proactive in addressing these matters, but I wanted to make you aware of it, that we'll be addressing it with their board on Friday. So, and I'll be touching base with Eli later on about it because he sits on that board. So, that's pretty much what I have this week. It's been a lot of that kind of work this week. And that's probably about it. Cheryl, do you have anything that you can think of? We did have a staff meeting that I talked about last week. At that staff meeting, Misty Hall did an outstanding job of very, along with Cheryl, of outlining that Chronos changed. Then a day later, went in great depth on that, and she's going to continue to have those dialogues with department head leads or individuals that are really, that's their task, to be involved with Chronos, so that the transition goes as smoothly as it possibly can. We also talked about the budget process, making people aware, and that's probably just about it.
So, yeah, the budgets. Our first budget meeting is what, that's the first I'm still on, so October
Yeah.
25th.
Yeah.
So, and today is the 9th, so we're hoping that you'll have the budgets by next week.
I'm gonna be Sanborn.
On the 25th.
Yeah, that's CBC Mitch's.
Okay, we'll fill you in, but you'll have plenty of time during the budget process if you have any questions. So.
Friday, the 25th.
Mhm.
Okay.
9
9.
9 9 to 1. And then our next one is it's gonna be incorporated with the commissioners meeting. The commissioners meeting, of course, will start at 8:30.
Yeah.
But we'll start budget reviews at 10:30, so we'll try to keep
And we'll make sure we get some D'Angelo's here or something.
and then the last one is the 1st of November, which at the moment only has the outside agencies on, and I really do actually wanna talk about that because I haven't notified them yet, but I do need to notify them. Should I just schedule all of them?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know last year we only scheduled ones that had increases, but something tells me they probably all have increases.
I think it's important for like the community kitchen to come through, because my understanding is Sarah Hofster had an opportunity to take a job, and
Is she gone yet?
I don't know if she's still here, there, or not, I don't know. I
And
mean,
then,
good for her.
Yeah.
But she was really good
Yeah,
at
yeah,
making a
yeah.
real impact at there, so.
okay, I'll make sure to just get them all on.
Okay. Any old business?
Can't think of any.
All right, any new business?
Oh,
So you're going to Sanborn?
yeah,
Okay,
the Surrey public hearing was very successful. They surveyed the crowd unanimously, voted to, join Cheshire Community College. Surrey.
Good.
Started this next week.
I had a contractor, he lives in Keene, but he was at my house looking at some work, and he's like. It's like, you know, I said, someday, see that section of the house, I'd like to have solar panels right there. I think it would really, you know, and he's like, so yeah, Eversource is really killing us, and he's like. And so I'm like, you're Keene, right? He said, yeah. I said, what are you paying? He said like the 11, 12, whatever it is, and I said, we're paying 8.9. It's like, how are you doing that? I said, you're in Keene. It's like, yeah, but I opted out and joined the county. How do I do that? Well, people just, you know, in this day and age, people just wanna know how to, one, you know, save some money. And two, beat the system. They wanna win, you know, and what we've created here. Yeah, it's interesting because Belknap County reached out to me, as they're gonna be the next county that moves forward, I think. And she's like, all right, Chris, so there's no money up front, there's no money here, there's no money there. I said, no.
No,
No,
not a dime.
not a dime. I said,
Wow,
Commissioner, I should, that's what I said. That's what I said. I said, Commissioner Clark would be more than willing to zoom in or even drive to really tell the story of why we did what we've done here. And I said, the only thing I can think of is mileage payout or copies of what they will send you, because they do all the work for you. They send us what the material is, they address it to the community that you're going to. And all you have to do is just go there and tell the story, but you need an advocate, and it doesn't have to be you that really is charged about this. And so she's like, this is great information. And it's the same thing I said to Derek, you know, because Derek's like, you know, is this too good to be true? And I said, not so far.
They're in.
Yeah, and they're in, right, and then, you know, Merrimack was in from the get-go.
Yeah, they've already got, I think 4 towns.
American,
Working
I
on more.
mean, the sad thing about Merrimack was that we were going to partner with them on their property
Yeah,
to build a solar array. And we couldn't because New Hampshire doesn't allow 2 systems, Eversource and Unitel, to be able to, you know, it's like, it is stupid. It's like they have the acreage. They have the acreage that meets the standards for the highest level of solar arrays. And they have more than enough than that land, and it's cleared, so there's really not gonna be any cost except for putting the solar, and it was like perfect. And we would have been shown a great partnership between 2 counties, and the cost would have been cut, but no, so it is what it is. But my thing right now, that the biggest struggle I have with the solar side of it is that if we were to bond, that would push up our overall.
Hmm.
And right now, we're getting a great rate.
yeah, well, it is not all about rate. I mean, there is the environmental effects of having renewable, and the sustainable, resiliency of having it local.
Yeah.
Because of the storm events and such like that, it will be protecting against damage to the grid and outages and such like that.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I gotta tell you, renewable is gonna come down as soon as these regulations are removed that allow renewable companies to actually be competitive. I mean, and that's the irony. We live in a system that's supposed to be all about competition, right? Well, they don't allow them to be competitive. They have so many restrictions that it just adds layers and layers of costs.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
just because they don't, you know, they bought stock in Unitil.
Then I'm gonna move on, if there's no other new business, consent agenda item, vote to accept the weekly manifest minutes of October 2nd, 2024. So move.
Second.
All right, Commissioner England, Commissioner Clark, motion carries. There is nothing in the calendar at this point that I need to point out to you that I'm aware of. General discussion for commissioners, we've already pretty much done. I think the only thing on here is, I'd like to go into a non-meeting. I'd like to, pause to talk about union matters. Just to make you aware of, some issues, pertaining to union matters. And that's it. So, I think we can pause and then come back on. Actually, if it's a union, we can actually,
It's a non-meeting.
it's a
It's not a
non-meeting,
meeting,
so we just, motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
Okay, Commissioner England,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark, we're adjourned. We're gonna go into a non-meeting.
See you next week.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I get. Glasses. Keep you on, but hold on, I want to stop recording.